Welcome back, everyone. We got something big for you today. We have with us Pastor Gregory Young, who is providing ministry to the DHS whistleblower who was recently shot and killed. That was Phil Haney. And he has some interesting information on what Mr. Haney was working on before he was killed. And Pastor Gregory here does not believe that this was an accident. He believes that he was murdered in cold blood related to his findings. Is this accurate?
Yes. Phil, I do a radio show called Chosen Generation Radio, which you have been on. And Phil was a regular guest on my program every 2 weeks. I'd done over 40 interviews with Phil. Phil was the original whistleblower. He was a DHS agent working in the Obama administration whose responsibility it was to identify terrorists and put them on a list that they would not be allowed to come into our country. What he discovered instead is that the people that he had identified were in fact being brought in by the Obama administration and placed in high-level, high-security advisory positions within our intelligence community, a position at which they could then leak information to our terrorist enemies. And so he spent 10 years being attacked by the Obama administration, 9 different investigations, all of them exonerated him. And he had been a guest on my program, as I said, nearly 40 interviews well over 3 years. On this past week, Phil and I had some time praying together, just having to do with, as one can imagine, with all that he dealt with, and he was continuing to write and to correlate and put together intelligence information going from the end of his book, which is See Something, Say Nothing, up until the present. And we had been praying about some specific spiritual warfare that he was sensitive to. And then on Wednesday, he sent me a message about a glorious breakthrough and how excited he was about what God had done. And our last message, together basically was, hey, I can't wait to share with you, this incredible thing that's happened. And he was very excited about it. I know that he spoke with his fiancée on Thursday, and they had laid out a date for when they planned to get married. So you have a man that was planning to get married, a man who was very devout in his Christian faith, a man who had, a lot of incredible projects in the works, including this new book that he planned to bring forward. And suddenly, Friday morning, he's dead of a gunshot wound.
Yeah, and I remember there was a lot of media speculation that, he killed himself, this and that. And then it's coming out now that the U.S. government is currently investigating whether it was suicide or murder. And so the initial narrative was it was interesting to how the media, a lot of them jumped the gun on assuming it was a suicide.
Well, and I commend the coroner in Amador, as well as the sheriff's department, who have come out with official statements and pushed back and said, wait a minute, that's not the case. That's not what we intended you to take, and it's been a misrepresentation. And we are, in fact, doing a full investigation, and we are accepting and receiving help from the FBI.
Great. Everyone, just so you know, too, we're broadcasting here from CPAC, so you got to forgive some of the background noise.
Live on Radio Row at CPAC.
You're doing the radio show here too, as well.
Sure, for on USA Radio Network.
And so this is big, though. You're saying that this DHS whistleblower was showing no signs whatsoever of being suicidal, was in very high spirits, had a lot of things looking up for him. You were in close communication with him on a spiritual level because you were a pastor for him. And so you would have known any real issues he was struggling with. Did you see any sign that he was suicidal at all?
No, I do not believe that he was suicidal. I do not believe that.
And what did he tell you about his book, the one he was getting ready to publish?
Well, we talked about that on the radio program, and he said that basically he was going to start at the point that See Something, Say Nothing left off.
Which was his last book.
Which was his last book. And then he was going to take from there and give us the full narrative of everything that had happened right up to the present. And some of the things, just as an example, he's the one that connected Sri Lanka to the terrorists in San Bernardino. And if the project that the Obama administration scrubbed had continued, it is about a 90% likelihood that the San Bernardino terrorist attack never would have happened, because those people would have been captured or they never would have gotten into the country to begin with. He was also involved in some investigations peripherally that had to do with Iran and weapons and cocaine, and the Obama administration again scrubbed that. And so I found it interesting recently with the president's decision to take out General Soleimani. Remember that he didn't hold, briefings. The Democrats claimed, no briefings, we weren't told, what have you. Well, the president knew, based on what Phil had even uncovered, that he had moles within the intelligence community. You obviously are not going to hold briefings so that information makes it back to those moles, so that those Islamic terrorists that are actually embedded in our intelligence community can leak that information out. And we have seen that happen over the years since Phil identified these individuals, predominantly Muslim Brotherhood.
Now, Pastor Gregory, I understand you're in a bit of a hurry because you got to go set up your own show here today.
Yes, sir.
But I guess just as a last point, is there if you were to leave our audience with one message about Phil and his work, what do you hope they'd understand related to what he was working on and the significance of all of this?
Well, what I hope that you will take away from this is that Phil Haney was a national treasure, that he was a brave man who stood up against true injustice, an administration that was putting our defense and intelligence at risk, that he was a godly man, that he was in love. He had just lost his wife of 45 years to cancer, and God had brought him someone, a soulmate, to take his wife's place, and he was excited about that, and he had everything in the world to be happy about and to be living for.
Pastor Gregory, it's a real pleasure having you on Crossroads.
Joshua, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Everyone, please remember to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell. We're going to be having a lot of good videos coming up. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.